Hello, we'll call this meeting to order. Police Advisory Board meeting, and welcome to everybody that's here and anybody who may be watching from home. We acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Administrative and procedural issues, 2.1, approval of the agenda. I'll look for a motion that the agenda be approved as presented. Councillor Strong and second by Councillor Lee. As per our Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, members are required to declare a conflict of interest to any, sorry, we better pass that first. Sorry, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. As per our Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, members are required to declare a conflict of interest to any discussion on the matter. 2.3, approval of the minutes. So you've all had a chance to look over the minutes. If there's no errors or admissions, I'll look at the minutes of November 25th, 2025, regular Police Advisory Board meeting be approved. Approved by, motion by Councillor Hotelling, second by Councillor Fromm. Any questions on that? No, don't see any. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Section 3 in business issues, 3.1, drug enforcement. And before we have Staff Sergeant Andrew Clark speak, we're going to have Greg going to say a couple words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. This item comes from a conversation that Staff Sergeant Clark and I had last week, I guess, just speaking about what is perceived to be significant drug activity in many of our communities, and how that ties into enforcement that the force undertakes, and an idea of how that enforcement results in charges and just a general discussion about that. So, Andrew, you and I had a conversation about that, and I invite you to just maybe make some initial comments about that, and then we'll open it up for questions. So thank you very much. Thanks, Fred.
Am I good to go? Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Greg. First of all, I'd like to introduce Corporal Andrew Kirstens. He's the NCO in charge of our Street Crime Enforcement Unit. So Greg had mentioned that this would be a topic here today, so I thought it would be certainly pertinent, and he can speak to more kind of the mandate of the Street Crime Enforcement Unit specifically, and I'll probably talk about it a little broader strokes on the front end. So first of all, RCMP drug strategy, or H Division for Nova Scotia drug strategy, we basically have a three-tiered process. So the first is federal and serious organized crime. They deal with high-level operations, mainly organized crime, high-level stuff, importing and exporting large quantities, transportation, conveyances of large quantities of illegal product into and out of the country, into and out of the province, and between provinces. Mainly distribution and importation. Big targets right now are cocaine, fentanyl, and counterfeit pharmaceuticals. At the provincial level, we have Nova Scotia Organized Crime Unit, relatively newly created, and that's to deal with stuff that doesn't fall under the federal mandate, but is a little bigger to deal with than what we can deal with at the local level. So they deal with a lot of stuff like the Cannabis Control Act. So you've seen a lot in the media recently regarding cannabis enforcement and some of the First Nations reserves. They're acting on that under directive from the Nova Scotia provincial government. They've been most recently targeting unregulated dispensaries through inspections and enforcement, and that's often conducted with enforcement partners such as alcohol and gaming provincially. Locally, we deal with drug enforcement a couple different ways. One way is through street crime, which I'll let Andrew speak to in a second. The other on the front end is on the patrol side or general duty side. It's through proactive and reactive policing. So proactive is that we're out dealing with a matter and we get someone with a quantity of illegal substances and we deal with it accordingly, whether it be illegal cannabis, illegal fentanyl, illegal pharmaceuticals. That can be dealt with various ways, through charge, through diversion, depends on the circumstance. Also, we get many tips through various ways, reports to the office, either anonymous or not, through Crime Stoppers, which are anonymous. And depending on the information, general duty or patrol uniform members can act on that, or that intelligence gets basically taken and examined by Andrew's unit, and they go with it further. Now, on the street crime side, I'll let you speak to that.
So first off, thank you for inviting me here to speak today. It is appreciated to get the opportunity to come and address concerns, questions, anything that might be had for the community here. So as Staff Clerk said, my name is Corporal Andrew Kirstens, and I am the NCO in charge of the Cumberland County Integrated Street Crime Unit. The Cumberland County Integrated Street Crime Unit is a unit consisting of 5 officers, myself included, and we are integrated with Amherst Police. Which means that we have 2 officers who are provided to us as part of a memorandum of understanding, as well as 3 RCMP officers, myself being one of them, of course, who are responsible for street crime enforcement within Cumberland County. Now, the term street crime enforcement is a little bit of a broad term, but does relate to, essentially as it sounds to, anything that is street level related. But can include anything such as property crime, thefts, prolific mischiefs, but certainly does extend into drug enforcement. Now, as Staff Clerk explained there, we do have a tiered system here under our RCMP priorities and strategies. And here in Cumberland County, our street crime enforcement unit is largely responsible for the lower to mid-level targeting, as Staff Clerk had explained there. Our unit operates first and foremost as an information gathering, collating, and actioning team. It's our job to collect information from the various sources, as Staff Clerk mentioned, from members of the public, whether anonymous or not. We use certain strategies such as confidential informants, and certainly use other surveillance techniques to try to acquire information that will help inform our investigations with an aim or a mandate to reduce and ultimately, obviously, the goal is to eliminate drug trafficking in the area, but certainly to help inform those investigations. And then, of course, to action those investigations, whether they result in arrest, seizure, and the like there, and proceed to process them through court. Again, there, I think that's a summary of what we do and what we aim to do there, and I think subject to questions eventually, but.
Yeah, just to contribute to what Andrew just said there, a lot of the investigations that his unit undertakes involves a exceptional amount of collation of information, surveillance, requests to author judicial authorizations or warrants. So these investigations are, not that they're more complex than any other investigation on their face, but there's certainly the time commitment is very significant for a unit of 5 members. So I think that any lens that the drug enforcement strategy is viewed through needs to keep that in mind when it looks at why don't we deal with problem X or problem Y. There may be any of those links in the chain, whether it be information or surveillance or judicial authorizations. If any of those investigative links are broken, it becomes problematic from a prosecution standpoint.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up, just to kind of fully bring to light the conversation we had about it and about drug activity, and certainly the perception that it is much worse in Cumberland County or in parts of Cumberland County than it is in other places. And I wonder if you're able to speak to that in relation to the province as a whole, or maybe southeastern New Brunswick. You know, can you give context to the drug activity, drug problem in this area as opposed to other parts of the province?
So without I don't have statistics to support that from other areas outside of Cumberland County. I have worked literally all over Nova Scotia, including Halifax, Yarmouth, Cape Breton here. I would think that our drug situation certainly is an issue, absolutely. I think it's on par and similar to what my counterparts in different jurisdictions are dealing with. Cumberland County has the unique geographical location where Some of our supply chain is somewhat different compared to different parts of the province. But barring that, I don't think the problems are exceptional outside of that. I think they are pretty standard across the board. I know Chief Pike in the town of Amherst is dealing with similar problems that I'm dealing with and similar challenges. My counterparts in Pictou County, Colchester County, Inverness County, I weekly talk to all those guys on meetings, and very, very similar issues. So I think it's an issue across the board, absolutely. But I don't know that our issue here is exceptional compared to other jurisdictions. I think it's probably exceptional to what historically it has been, yes, but I don't think it's exceptional when compared to other jurisdictions.
Thank you for the report, and we'll open it up for questions from councilors, if there's any questions or comments that anyone wants to make. It's an easy round. Do you think, us being a border town, do you think that contributes to more problems, or does it just go on by Cumberland County and through the
Different
province?
problems, different challenges. I don't know about more jurisdictional issues, so we have to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row, like as an enforcement agency, with regards to Andrew's unit, his counterpart in J Division or New Brunswick, Chief Pike's force in town of Amherst. We have to make sure that there's that intelligence sharing piece that's done fluidly, and that the border doesn't pose anything more than a line on a map. And the other geographical, let's say the unique aspect of Cumberland County, supply is slightly different here than where it comes from other areas. So, and that holds true for drugs as well as illegal cigarettes and some other contraband, but mostly, of course, drugs being the biggest issue that's prevalent right now.
Thank you. So I don't, Councillor Lockhart, question?
Am I on? Yeah, thank you. I want to welcome Constable Kirsten to the area and this unit. This is very important. I differ a little bit in some opinions on the drug issues. I don't think it's an issue. I think it's a crisis. I tried to get the actual statistics, which I ran into a little more problem. I come up with 16 names in the last 2.5 years of people that passed away, basically mental health, but drugs. The statistics that I got for this meeting is for 25 and leading into 26, we have 19 trafficking charges. So we just have a few more trafficking charges and we actually have people that passed away. So I think it's a huge issue, and I want to welcome Constable Kirsten, and hopefully you can make a dent in this, because I think it's just the drugs that we're dealing with today are not the drugs we were dealing with even a year ago. So I really, really hope that we have some success with this. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you. I just would like to ask, what would you recommend community members who are bumping into things and unsure what to do when they suspect things are occurring in their community around people who are making drugs, and it's kind of unknown to them? They circulate it within the community, but not necessarily to the people that they need to get it to. So rather than it hit in social media and things like that, what would you recommend that people who are unsure and maybe not friendly with you all do in these situations?
From a reporting standpoint?
Yes. So just community members, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways that,
Okay.
that reports can be made to us. Now, it depends if you want anonymity as an issue or not. Anonymous reports create some challenges for us to take enforcement action versus reports that are not anonymous. So there's basically a number of different ways. So if anonymity is an issue, Crime Stoppers is helpful to us. We receive all those tips. They're collated. That can be done anonymously online, so through the internet. Contacting the local detachment, normal line during business hours. After hours, it'll ring through. There's the 1-800-803-RCMP, which is 7267. That goes through to our dispatch. A file will be created, dispatched to a member. Or if it's a right now immediate threat to life, 911 is always an option. But if anonymity is a concern for the person reporting it, Crime Stoppers would be the most, I guess, secure way of assuring that anonymity, if that's a concern for them. But there's a big difference in anonymous report of someone cooking meth versus Jim Smith sees someone cooking meth and he's willing to provide a statement to that effect with regards to getting a judicial authorization to enter a premises or an arrest warrant or any type of documents that we need to pursue to further that investigation. So it's not that the anonymous complaints don't help, but they have to be corroborated.
That's actually very helpful. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Oops, sorry. Thanks for that report, and I don't see any other questions. We'll move on to 3.2.
I just have one other.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that, if I could, Mr. Chair, that I get as much of the conversation that I was able to have in the public domain, because we're streaming the meeting, and I hear anecdotally these things, and I think it's important to just kind of get them out and talk about them. And just a couple of questions. Talk about street crime unit and all that it does and all that that's on its plate. I wonder if you can just ballpark the percentage of a typical week or a month that you would spend on drug-related issues. And I understand that property crime and that they all interplay and one is a source for the other. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and certainly I can only ballpark on that. Our mandate and our practices and our investigations are dictated in large part by the information we received. So our investigations are informed, and if we do have are informed by the information we receive, and we go through a triage process to decide that this is a priority and this is actionable with the information we have. So that varies in as things progress, as when our information comes in, the time of year, the resource we have available, other priorities that are coming in here. But I would say, at least since I've taken over the unit, which has been about January, a larger part of our investigations have been engaged in investigating drug trafficking.
So more than half?
I would say to be fair, and some weeks it's 100%.
Yes.
When we have an attempt murder and 2 serious ag assaults, it might be considerably less than that if the resources are diverted to deal with those persons' crimes. But that would be the exception as opposed to the rule. So I would think that the majority of your meat and potatoes for your unit is either directly or has overlap with the drug trade. So 75%, I think, would be a fair,
I would
assessment.
say probably slightly more than 50%. Certainly since I've assumed my position here at the unit.
Okay, thank you for that. Just a couple more. Thanks, Fred. Another question and then a request. So one of the things you said in your initial remarks, Corporal Kirsten, correct?
Yeah,
Kirsten.
yes.
You mentioned, you used a phrase called prolific mischiefs. Can you tell me what, is that the plain language? Is it what I think it would be, or do you?
Mischief, I use it in the term of the criminal code there. It would be prolific, mischief would be damage, essentially there. To use an example, damage to hydro lines and things like that there. It could be an extension of, if we had a prolific arson scenario on the go, we would direct our attention and our resources towards that, if need be. In any event, it's just anything that is street crime related that requires our attention, we will divert resources and attention to different areas to help investigate and help deal with the most prominent issue of the time. So.
Of the 5 or 6, maybe half dozen higher profile street crime files over the last 24, 30 months, where we've had significant seizures involving multiple people charged, every one of those files has had a drug component, a weapons component, and a significant stolen property component. So none of these things are in silos, and they're stealing for dope, or they're dope, it's weapons to protect their money because of the dope and the stealing, and it's all, we're never getting usually just a drug dealer, right? Or just someone with legal firearms. They all seem to have components of those 3.
Thank you for that. So I think this is the last question and kind of request. So I hear it a fair amount, that there's a lot of, and just anecdotally, because I talk to members of the community, I talk to members of council, and kind of a little bit of a funnel, so I hear a lot of it, about the level of drug activity and how things are different, and for people of my age with the gray hair, it's hard to imagine the level of, both the level of drug activity and the differences in what police are dealing with from when I was 20 years old. So, and so perception is real for members of the community, and the opportunity to have these conversations with the community, I think sometimes is important. Even if the community maybe doesn't take us up on it, I think it's important to offer it. Do you think it's possible that we might, in some future time soon, be able to host a few community meetings, just to deal with those, just to make a bit of a presentation and hear what folks have to say about their perceptions of drug activity and its results and how it impacts communities and that sort of thing? Is that something you'd be willing to do, Andrew?
Well, I mean, you know me, I love a good community meeting. You know, we've had a few since I've been here.
I knew
so-
that before I
Yeah.
asked the question.
Right. So, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we can facilitate that, or we can make that happen a couple spots around the county if it's beneficial, if it's needed. We can have a presentation and take some questions. We can talk about reporting, so on and so forth. The big thing that people need to see is this is not a police problem, it's a societal problem. There's a number of different factors at play. Legalization in 2018 normalized a lot of stuff for a lot of people, brought a lot of stuff out of the dark. And when you were younger and I was younger and some of the people in this room were younger, a few people were smoking weed here and there, but wasn't as prevalent. Now that's normalized. So the people that when you and I were younger were smoking weed, well, when you fast forward 20 or 30 years, now that those people are it's pharmaceuticals or it's cocaine or it's fentanyl or whatever, right? So it's like everything's been dialed up a notch. And people looked at the police to solve the problems when the police are part of the solution. But the community as a total needs to take some ownership and assist and be willing to be involved, whether that's proactively, reactively, through prosecutions, through education, through community meetings, whatever. Yeah, but certainly we'd be open to that.
Thank you. I think, as long as I don't see anybody objecting, but I think we'll probably take you up on that and try to organize, help you organize something to
Yep.
deal with that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Fred.
So you're done?
For now.
Okay. Don't see any other questions. You have a question?
Yeah, I'll
Yep.
jump in here now. if you
Yep,
don't
Mayor
mind.
Gilroy?
I guess my point or conversation would be around communities that don't feel safe. Without using specific addresses, because this meeting is being streamed.
Yep.
You perhaps are aware of what I'm thinking about.
Yep.
And so, recently I've been in some of those communities with some of my counselors and interview 5 people up and down both sides of the street, and everybody feels unsafe. And, not necessarily drug activity, but other obnoxious activities of all sorts of nature, as you're aware.
Yep.
So what word do we say to those people? I mean, they've been calling, we've checked, they've made phone calls, they've messaged in, whatever, and they really don't feel safe. Like, and I'm not talking about all, 5 streets, I'm talking about,
Yep.
5 or 6 houses on either side of the problem site, so to speak. What
So-
message can we send to those folks?
So it sounds like a broken record, but it's contact the police, because if it's the certain address that we discussed there last week, in 4 months, I can count on one hand, without using all my fingers, how many calls we've received about that address in 4 months. So I'm not saying there's not problems or there's not issues, but we can't fix what we don't know about, we can't respond to what we don't know about, and we can't address it. So there's a number of ways that we can deal with it, but we need to have that occurrence information, the same as if it's a problem with speeding or whatever. We need those files to be generated. The previous year, for that same address, there was significantly more occurrences generated. 4 in 4 months is quite different for this year. Quite a drop. The other side of it is there are other agencies that have different methods and abilities through the civil courts to deal with stuff, the SCAN program and whatnot. And we certainly can partner with those agencies as well, and we reciprocate and work back and forth.
I think that would be a very good information point if we get to the point of having community meetings
Sure.
to pass that along and reiterate that point. I know that when we had the meeting in Spring Hill a year and a bit ago with the business community, and you were there, I was there, Councilor Lockhart was there.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about, prevention by installing lights and cleaning up vegetation and
Yep.
all of that, and I understand your point. I've been back to some of those sites since then, and some of them, those people have taken proactive approaches and made their problem go away. Others have not, and they're still complaining about their problem.
Yep.
So I understand your point of view there too.
Yep.
But also, the other thing, at that meeting, there was a bit of a commitment made, or more than that, for a couple of members in Spring Hill to visit individually the local business communities and be a little more, face on and with the business community in Spring Hill. And the report back that I'm getting is that that hasn't been done. And so sometimes when you're trying to sell things to a community, say, come out to a meeting, and they sit there and go, well, there's no good to come because nothing ever comes out of it at the end of the day. And so, I'd like to get that ball moved from one spot to another
Yep, fair point.
in Cumberland County.
And with regards to doing face-to-faces with the business community in Spring Hill, or boats on the Tidnitz River, or anything else, it's about people in the seats, right? And when I'm down to minimums or below minimums on patrol side, I don't think anybody in this room or anybody in the community would want me to take a patrol car off the road to do maybe a not as important a role. Not that it's not important, but it's not as important as responding to calls for service, right? So I can get into it when I talk about the HR side here later on, about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going on the HR side. But we have had some challenges since our last meeting, and I can discuss that further. But no, I hear your point, and fair point on that for the face-to-face. Yeah.
And last but not least, your signs are up on the Tidnitz River that we talked about last year, so now you're good to go for us.
I see that. We were out twice last year.
Yep.
Warnings issued, no charges, but a little bit of an issue this year with the vessel availability. We didn't have much of one last year, and now this year I haven't got either one, but we're working on it.
Sounds good, thank you very much.
Councilor Lockhart.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak a little bit to your last answer there about cars. When I was coming here today, there was 2 RCMP cars in the arena parking lot. One is the traffic lady with the one with no decals on it, with her lights flashing all by herself, the 2 cars parked there. There's another one down by the old liquor store checking for speeding, and there's another one in Fenwick checking for speeding. So there's at least 4 cars that were in a space of 15 kilometers today. That just happened, and that, I wouldn't even thought of that till you mentioned that, so.
Those are not Cumberland District resources.
None of those?
Those are provincial traffic resources.
Okay.
So they have a different mandate,
Okay.
and I can use them like in an emergency situation, but I don't have control over their day-to-day activities.
Yeah. So that would be something in a public meeting that would be very important, because most people, and I wouldn't have understood half of this till a year and a half ago, but most people do not understand those things. So some of this is a lack of people knowing, but I really think, we can point fingers, we can do this, we can do that. The mayor and I've talked, and Greg, and we've all talked, and we need to come up with a little better solution. Everyone work together, and I know Andrew a little bit, and I'm really excited that he's going to take up this challenge. Thank you.
Well, I'll thank you for that presentation one more time, and move on to 3.2, communicating with RCMP, including assigning priorities. And before I ask you to speak, I think Mr. Harrod always likes to get last word in here.
I'm going to get the first word in, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So the last conversation is a great segue into this one, and they are interrelated. And again, Andrew, we talked a little bit about this, and you've talked a little bit about it in some of your responses, is about communicating with the RCMP. And again, perception, right? And perception and reality, and trying to shine a light on it. What we hear, what I hear, is that it's challenging to, on the front end, and maybe through the process and sometimes, communicate with the RCMP. So you mentioned Crime Stoppers, which is one option, but calling 911 or calling the local non-emergency number, the challenges that are presented in terms of identifying oneself and, civic numbers and dates of birth and, all of those things And when you and I talked about it, we also talked about the priority assigned to calls and how that plays into how things are dispatched and how resources are assigned. So can you give us a little bit on that, and then maybe, I'm sure that some of the members of the board will have some questions, so thank you.
Yeah, no, I'll start right with, so our lowest level of crime reporting for a very specific kind of family of crime, so online crime reporting, which is an RCMP website, just report.rcmp.ca. It's non-emergency, the victim itself must report, and it's for property crime only, and it's a really limited scope of crimes. It's basically for something that we don't need to have a police officer attend immediately or at all. So it's for reporting mischief, theft, lost property, hit and run to an unoccupied vehicle only, a lost or stolen license plate, and basically you report the crime, put your tombstone data in, you'll get a file number back if you require it for insurance or whatever the case may be, or for follow-up. And if there's anything further required, a police officer will be in touch with you. So that's online crime reporting. You can't report anything outside of those crime types there. It won't let you. When you try to pick, it's very limiting on what it does. Crime Stoppers, with regards to anonymity, you can report anything through Crime Stoppers. That's 1-800-222-TIPS, 1-800-222-8477. You can do it online, you can do it by phone. Your anonymity is guaranteed with Crime Stoppers, and you can report any type of incident there. That's Crime Stoppers being a third party. You report to Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers generates a Crime Stoppers tip sheet that comes to a select few at the detachment, comes to myself, comes to Corporal Kirstens, Sergeant, and a couple others, and that's it. And then we take it, and if we get a lot of information about a certain thing, we start to collate the information, then who might take it and put together an investigation and go forward with it. The normal administrative lines for the detachment. So every detachment of the 5 offices has a number. I don't think I need to run down through the numbers there for each office. Also, there's the 1-800-803-RCMP or 7267, which goes directly to the Operational Communications Center. All the detachment numbers after hours, unless there's some type of problem or issue with the phones, which has happened in the past at times, will ring through to the Operational Communications Center. As well, if the detachment lines are busy, which is quite common, we have 2 detachment assistants in Amherst and 1 at each of the other offices. So if the lines are busy, the phone line will bounce after a certain number of rings through to the OCC, or the Operational Communications Center. This would be for a non-emergency line. So it's a call for service, you want to make a complaint, you want to report something, but it's non-emergency, there's no immediate threat to life or property. And you are going to be asked a lot of questions. Prior to coming here, this is where I worked as a risk manager. That is for the police officer safety, it's for an accurate risk assessment, and it's to know who we're dealing with. So that, unfortunately, is it tedious? Absolutely. It's not going away anytime soon, but that is the criteria, and that's their process. They have a check sheet that they follow online on the screen, and all the blanks have to be filled. 911 is only for immediate threat to safety, property, or health of person. It's not because you don't know the local line, which a lot of people tend to say, oh, I'll just call 911, I don't know the number for Oxford. Well, you may get a $687 fine under the 911 Act if that's the case. So 911 is for, we need a police officer, fire, or ambulance right now. So immediate threat to life or property. So that's the various methods of reporting. Any questions about any of those before I move on to priority assignments?
I have one quick one, if I could.
Go ahead.
Wouldn't be happy if you didn't.
Just trying to get her all out there. Crime Stoppers.
Yep.
Anonymous reporting. If through a Crime Stoppers call there is some sense or identified sense of urgency, does it get
Escalated?
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
The thing with Crime Stoppers is that's not necessarily monitored 24/7 like a dispatch, so it goes into a queue. So I think when it comes to their attention, they will certainly bring it to our attention, but at 3 in the morning, it'll be generated and recorded, but if it's right now, 911 would be your appropriate. Okay, so when it goes to our dispatch.
Just, I think
Sorry?
Mr. Lockhart Councilor Lockhart had a.
Yeah, I just had a question. It was kind of on calling. So if I want to call the Amherst detachment and speak to you,
Yep.
do I have to explain why I want to speak to you?
Usually the detachment assistants will ask what's it regarding, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
you
think
don't have to
that's one of the
explain, but-
concerning things that's happened sometimes is people call the detachment, they've been working with an officer.
Yeah.
And it might be something they don't want to talk about to somebody they don't know. They've been dealing with somebody. So I think that's another thing that should, I don't know if that's your priority, if you, who makes those mandates, those rules. But I think that's another thing. If I call and know a
But do you mean
the
me
pers-
specifically or any specific police officer?
if I called and asked for you,
Yeah, it's quite often the detachment assistants will ask what it's regarding.
yeah,
And then because quite often I'm involved with something else, and it may be something that means, oh, I should break away from this to deal with that, or not. But if you're dealing with Corporal Kirstens or Constable Smith, and that's who you've been dealing with and you're looking for, there's absolutely nothing, that's fine. No, you want to talk to Constable Smith, great.
well, that's sort of my question is that when you do call her now and ask for one of the other constables, I just
Yep.
use you as an example,
Yep.
you do get the 15 questions and you have to tell them why and you have to go through the whole
Yeah,
thing.
if you're
So
dealing
that-
with the OCC, that won't change.
I mean, that's calling the office directly.
Yeah, you won't get 15 questions at the office. You might get what's it about, or what's it involving, or is there a file number? But if you call the OCC, you will get the long list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So once the file, if you call and make a complaint, so you call and the Amherst line, for example, and our local detachment assistants, what they do on the computerized dispatch system, they make up the complaint. It's actually sent to our dispatch center to be dispatched to our cars, right, electronically. So when it gets dispatched, it's assigned a priority. So priority 1 through 4, triage, just like a lot of other lines of emergency services do. So priority 1's our highest priority. It's a very urgent, immediate dispatch. Police officers required right now to prevent loss of life. Assistance is required. There's a major incident in progress. That's a priority 1. Priority 2 would be urgent, which means dispatch as soon as possible. So there's an urgent need for police presence, assistance, or service. There may be no loss of life involved, but there is a potential for escalation. Priority 3 is routine, dispatch as soon as reasonably possible, and that could be anything reporting a damage to a mailbox or a low-level complaint. They don't require immediate presence, assistance, or service. A priority 4 is no immediate action required, and that could be a priority 4, anything from my neighbor in Heathers Beach always has loud parties. Is he having a loud party now? No, but he always does, right? So I'm just letting you know, that's for information. Or we want a police car at the Christmas parade. That's the type of thing a priority 4 would be. So majority of our calls are priority 2 and 3. Majority are. All 911s come in generally as priority 1 if they're true 911s. That's essentially how that lays out. But it's a fairly straightforward process for triage.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Committee? No questions? We'll move on to 3.3, RCMP billing mechanisms, and most likely you will get the last word this time. We'll ask Greg Harrett to lead us in this.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and just before I speak on this one, thanks for those conversations and that information and the willingness to arrange the public meetings. Much appreciated. This is just a brief update for members of the Police Advisory Board on changes to the RCMP billing mechanism to date. The way the municipality is billed for policing services is purely on a per officer basis. From time to time, the RCMP and the Department of Justice actually will do an assessment of the need for the number of officers through a model that they run. I always get the acronym wrong. GDPRM, is that it? There you go. Well, you could get a sticker. So, so it's that, and a number of officers pops out of that process, and we pay, approaching $300,000 now per officer for those services. Department of Justice is making changes. There's been an initial conversation with CAOs in the municipalities in Nova Scotia that are under the PPSA, the Provincial Policing Services Agreement, and it will be moving to a billing that is weighted in three ways. 35% on population, 35% on uniform assessment, and 30% on number of officers. It's anticipated that this will create a cost saving for municipalities. Provincial government is investing a little bit more. I don't know the exact dollar values, a few $1 million more in policing. And so, but there will be opportunities to talk about spending some of those resources on different types of resources, whether those be community safety officers or some sort of layered policing. So we don't have the details as it relates to our municipality. We expect a one-on-one meeting with the Department of Justice and myself and probably the mayor and the chair sometime in July, followed by some more information in August. They're looking at an implementation date of the fall, so we wait for the nitty-gritty details on that issue, but there are some changes coming, so just kind of letting folks know. Happy to try to answer any questions that members of the board might have.
Thank you, CAO. Mr. Harrod, anybody have any questions? It sounds like good news coming our way, maybe. Yep, Councilor Lockhart.
Comment. And I've been council for a year and a half, and I've always asked Greg why are we billed for more officers than we have? But we talked about this, and this is a very positive thing. And then the money, hopefully, that can go into some other resources to help along with some of the issues our communities are facing.
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Chair, there still will be the issue of hard vacancies and soft vacancies and how that plays into the weighted formula. So it won't be purely you're just going to pay for the resources that are on the street. There still will be some level of vacancy built in, but it certainly appears to be a positive step. So,
Councilor Redden.
Yeah, there was a comment made by our CAO that it's 300,000 police officer. Just let it be known that they don't get $300,000 a year, because I know that will be interpreted that negatively. So just wanted to bring that forward.
Look, the cost per officer builds in. Thank you, Councillor. The cost per officer builds in many things, including the HR component, but the cost of kit and cars and administration and training and technology, and then there's a charge for centralized services and that sort of thing. So it's all built in there. I think the officers only make about $275. I'm teasing.
Staff Sergeant Clark, do you want to respond to that?
Not in this form.
Is there any other questions on this matter? Okay, so moving on to operational reports, section 4.1 is quarterly report from October 1st to December 31st, as well as 4.2, the report from January 1st to March 31st. They were included in the meeting package, but did you want to just run through them or quickly, or?
What I'd like to do, okay, with the board, I'm going to refer to the notable files from these, just I'll quickly breeze through the notable files, and I'll use the documents that I put on your desk there with regards to the stats. So that's our newest, latest and greatest tool for pulling occurrence information, and I've been learning how to use it, /fighting with it, /wrestling with it, trying to get it to work. There's some challenges with regards to, essentially, as you guys know, 4 detachments plus a municipal police service turned into Cumberland District. And our boundaries and zones are still based on the old policing model when Oxford had a sergeant and Parisburg had a sergeant, and they were standalone detachments. When they were standalone detachments, all their zones, each office had its own individual zones for reporting crime. So where I'm going with this is, you see this pie graph on the bottom left portion of each page? Completely, absolutely disregard and ignore that pie graph. Our zones it was never an issue till we pulled this data. And when I came out, I said, oh my God. And anyway, so I'm working with that, trying to get that sorted, but that's a work in progress. The rest of it is fine. But what I'll do is I'll go through the notable occurrences, then we can talk about the stats and some trends, if that's all right. Okay. All right, so for the first, the report that was sent out with the package, which would be for the last quarter of '25. Just the notables at the end. We had some assaults. We had one where a female, we were dealing with a PPA matter, Protection of Property Act matter, so relatively low-key matter. And she disclosed that a male had presented a retractable baton, similar to a police baton, and threatened to assault her. And another male present did assault her during the incident. Both males were arrested and charged. The assault with a weapon and straight assault there. There's some other ones there. Assault with a weapon, midway down the page. Complainant reported a female neighbor was arguing with a male so loud it woke them up. When we got there, female stated she was pinned down, grabbed by the neck, and punched by a male known to her, then fled on an ATV. Members located the male suspect and was arrested for assault, choking, and prohibited driving. The male was processed and released on undertaking. I wanted to include that, released on undertaking. So our risking tool for domestic violence, intimate partner violence, is the ODERA. And when it gets to ODERA 7 or higher, based on a series of questions from the incident, it's automatic, the person is held. If it's 6 or lower, they're released on conditions unless there's extenuating circumstances. So sometimes when you say, oh my goodness, this happened, and then the person was released, that's why, that's our policies. We use the ODERA for consistency. Immediately below that, assault with a weapon. His brother was stabbed by a male suspect, was transported to the hospital, knife was seized, statement was obtained. The male was located and arrested at a residence in Spring Hill and then taken to court. Another one, his female partner assaulted him with Christmas ornaments. Ashtray and a knife. The complainant had defensive marks on his hands and arms as cuts to his face and head. Suspect threatened to slit the complainant's throat if he went to sleep. The male has a safe place to stay and has left the home the field and was located, arrested, and released on an undertaking for court. Another one, next page, assault with a weapon, while brandishing a butcher's knife. And she could not tell anyone if she wanted to see Christmas. The male obtained a statement. The male was arrested and held in custody. Another assault with a weapon. Complainant reports his son pointed a firearm at him. When they arrived and discovered the complainant had initially started a fight and then pulled out a knife, threatening to burn the house down and kill everyone inside of it. So the complainant, or perceived victim at the start, turned out to be the accused. Members arrested the complainant. Statements were obtained, and the investigation revealed the son had never pointed a firearm at the complainant. Charge of threats, assault with a weapon ×2, and public mischief for misleading police officers. Held in custody. I think that's impaired driving of a side-by-side ATV. That was on Halloween evening in Parsboro. Members located the side-by-side stationary, and they blew 140, 130. And they were ripping around town. I remember that file. That was a dangerous file, given the night and kids on the road. Theft. Complaint received a theft of a pallet jack and wallet stolen from a shed. We went to the suspect's address. He was uncooperative, said go get a warrant, so we did. We executed the warrant, and we arrested the 2 males and the female, and there was 11 criminal charges laid. So, no doubt that's why he told us to go get a warrant. Taser and brass knuckles were seized at the scene. So again, a lot of this property crime, drugs, weapons, that's the triple threat you're gonna see in a lot of these files, right? Drugs, stolen property, weapons. And it's nice how in that one, I believe it was the female that had all the weapons in her purse, I believe. Yeah, because everybody carries brass knuckles and a taser, yeah. Pointing a firearm. Complaint received the detachment. A gentleman had pointed a rifle at him and his girlfriend. Statements were obtained. Search warrant was executed by SKU. We found 1 loaded rifle and another one that was improperly stored. Another one, just a routine traffic stop in Pugwash, and they located a rifle in the vehicle between the front passenger seat and the driver's seat, pointing towards the windshield. Apparently no one owned it. The firearm was seized, no trigger lock, and no one had a firearms license. Both males were charged. So that's that. If it's all right, I'll go through the HR at the end of all the files. Okay, for the next quarter, again, assault with a weapon. Complaint received, a boyfriend was from a female, a boyfriend was trying to kill her. Male was located walking down the highway. The male claimed the female complained that stabbed him. Was found with a bag with $1,800 in cash and small bills. Were arrested and lodged. The alleged stab wounds were superficial. And the vehicle was located in Colchester County with ammunition in plain view on the seat, along with several cannabis baggies. And the female was located in Halifax at her residence and arrested and released on undertaking. Again, assault with a weapon, domestic dispute. Female complainant reported a male partner attended the residence, kicked in the door, and held a knife to her throat. Threw her against the dresser, threatened to kill her, and took her phone so she couldn't call 911. Suspect was located, arrested, and held in custody. And over 20 criminal charges laid on that file. Missing person complaint. This is the one that recently, no doubt you've heard in the media, it was just deceased person was located. So that's the missing person complaint that was received there in January. So remains were recovered last week. Drug trafficking, 3 males were arrested during a traffic stop. Large quantity of methamphetamine, weapons, and ammunition were seized. Vehicle was seized, cell phones were seized and sent for analysis. Drug paraphernalia present to indicate active sale and distribution of illegal drugs and cigarettes. 3 were charged with 8 offenses, matters before the courts. So that's it, kind of for the skimming through the notable files. I just want to make a quick blurb on HR, then I'll talk about some stats, if that's okay.
Could I just a quick question
Sure,
on that
yeah.
stuff, Andrew? If you could just, it came to mind while you were reading the information about traffic stops and drug seizures. Given where we are in the unique geographic area and the pipeline to New Brunswick and right off the 104, is there a sense for how much of the drug activity that end up in charges or activity is as a result of people going through the corridor or are local to the area? Is there a sense for that?
How so?
Well, just you know, how often is it you've a traffic stop on the 104 or on Route 6 or 4 or 2 or whatever, folks just going through the area, or that it's a local group or somebody that you've developed a file on and are more proactive on? Just curious.
Both, I would say. Like, we actively act on information we receive regarding people, you know, whether it be through a commercial conveyance or private vehicle. Because, I mean, dope going to Newfoundland, back and forth to Halifax, you know, stolen property one way, dope on the return trip. So we'll act on those, and quite often we deal with them here, Cobequid Pass, because of the kind of natural bottleneck, right? Geographically, it makes sense. The SKU team and our local patrol guys who know the local players will deal with that local component because they know the cars, they're in contact with APD, we have the information to know that so-and-so is driving a black Honda Civic and he regularly travels to Sackville or whatever the case may be. So I'd have to say both. A lot of the large seizures are not coming to here, they're going through.
I guess that was my point. And many of the seizures you make aren't just good luck. You're following up on information from I don't know, Halifax or Moncton or Sydney or New Glasgow or.
Yeah, right. It's as a result of some type of investigation, either by us or by another agency. Yeah. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
You wanna continue?
On the HR side, as I was chatting with a few of you earlier before we started the meeting, so we've had a lot of turnover recently. So the 33 regular members that we have, including the 3 RCMP members of the SKU team, since the last quarter of 25 to date, we've had 7 discharges here. So 7 people have been discharged from the RCMP, and majority of those positions have been filled, with a couple of exceptions. And we have 1 more retirement coming up in the end of June, normal retirement. So of note, we have a member named for Advocate Harbor. He's coming from Saskatchewan. We have a new corporal starting coming from New Brunswick, should be here within the next 2 weeks. And we have another member coming from Alberta starting in June as well. So that, along with people coming from depot, have backfilled the majority of our vacancies. Right now, our community policing position is vacant, and we're actively trying to staff that. That's a staffing action that's ongoing. And we have some other soft vacancies with long-term sick leave. But overall, we've bottomed out and we're starting to build back up with regards to kind of sorting out from those 7 discharges.
So I'm just gonna ask one, yeah, the soft vacancies, how many do we have of them currently?
So right now, we have 1, 4 right now.
4, and, other than that, we're fully staffed, with the.
Well, the soft vacancies wouldn't include, so we have people on graduated return to work. They're not considered a soft vacancy, but
okay.
they're on restricted duty status.
So how many active do we have now, then? I guess would be my question, counting the 2 that are coming.
Okay, we have. So we would have 26.
Thank you. And did you have a
Plus
question?
or minus 1.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Is there any questions from anybody? Nope. Okay, we're good, so that's,
Okay, yeah, so that's it essentially. And in addition to that, we also had 2 secondments for a provincial project for 4 months, and they're back June 1st. So that's helpful as well at the local level. Yeah, no, that's it. I just wanted to update on the HR. Sergeant Spring Hill. We're not promoting them. Yeah. Yeah, Jarrett should be back next week. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to refer now to these pros occurrence, so I'll just quickly run through these. So you have 3 in front of you. So the 2, you'll see the reported dates up here, this area here. So 2 of them are for each of the quarters that the reports that I previously gave you sent out are for. It's just in a different format. So I'm not going to really refer to these. I'm going to refer to the top one, which has a reported date of May 21, 2024 to May 21, 2026. It's basically a moving 2-year window I can draw stats for. Each of these things has 4 pages. The first one is overall occurrences for Cumberland County. The second one is persons crime. The third one is property crime. And the fourth one are drug offenses. So overall, and it's the same for each package. So for each quarter, you have those offenses broken down that way. So in referring to the one that's good for the 2 years, which I think if I did it right, it's the top of the 3 that I gave you. I apologize if it's not. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. My head almost exploded trying to get them all together properly. So overall, so I have a moving 2-year window, and because of purge dates and retention dates, that's essentially why it has to be a 2-year window to capture all occurrences. You can see our total numbers, again, ignoring the zone pie chart. So on the right side, you see days and a day of the month, days of the week, days of the month for the calls, right? And you can see 2024, 2025, 2026 compared based on the bar graph in the center here, which is kind of the most telling. So using 2025 as an example to 2026. So for January, February, March of this year, we are actually down in overall occurrences. And into April, we're down. So you can see that is telling. I don't have, because of the 2-year moving window, I don't have 2024 there to act as a comparison. When you go beyond May to June, you can see 2024 shows in the gray. So 2024, May, June, July, August. May's a bit of an anomaly by the looks of things there. So June, July, August, you can see June, July, and August are pretty similar, 2024 to 2025. I'm anticipating, I'm hoping that the stats will show that we see this continued trend downward as we've seen in January, February, March, April. Our occurrence logs so far seem to indicate that's the case. I don't have anything to think that it's going to be an upswing at this point. The trends are down slightly. And again, that's overall, right? So when we go to the second page, you can see the breakdown then by persons crime over the same period. So with persons crime, big thing too is not only is the incidence of the occurrences, number of occurrences, but also the amount of reporting and awareness. So we are slightly up for 2026 for January, and then we're slightly down for February. We're slightly up for March, we're slightly down for April. So what that's telling me is that there's really, we seem to be relatively static or par for the course there. You can see when May, June, July, August, September of 2024 compared to 25, you can see quite an increase for July, August, September of reporting, right, of incidents. You can see the distribution down below, occurrence count by violation, so obviously common assault or straight assault, and included offenses at 270 counts, for example, threats 262, criminal harassment 124, and those three offenses are most commonly, not always, but most commonly involved or are generally involved with intimate partner violence. So that's a real trend that we're seeing, an uptick in both in reporting and occurrences of overall. Again, then we get down to assault with a weapon, harassing communications, and sexual assault. So that's for persons crime. Next page is property crime. So persons crime overall has seemed relatively static overall. Property crime, we've definitely seen a downswing. I think at last board meeting, I believe when I reported the stat, I think it was a 36% decrease year over year. And that was basically as a result of targeting 4 or 5 organized crime groups in the area that were dealt with through various means. And again, those guys, right, stolen property, weapons, and dope. So all 3 of those things were dealt with at all of those search warrants, I believe. We encountered all those weapons, drugs, money, and stolen property. And as a result of targeting those groups, we saw a significant reduction overall. So I'm hoping, again, January, February, March, a little less so in April, you see a reduction, 2026 over 2025. I'm hoping that trend will continue May through December through the rest of the year. Statistically, it looks favorable. Again, mischief being the biggest one, theft under, right behind it. Break and enter, a big one here, especially the seasonal properties. Frauds, mischief, damage to property. Those are our most common ones. Last, we have our drug offenses. Now, statistically, we have a lot less data here to work with, so it's a little more varied. So we see occurrence count by month and year. So January, February, March, and April, and May, there seems to be quite a reduction. I don't know that statistically we have enough numbers here to ascertain the validity of that. As you know, there's a big difference in 8 and 16 versus, 180 and 160, right, if we were comparing them. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight in that. If you look at over the last year, you go by 2024, July and August, there was likely little or no enforcement action in August for a number of reasons. So there's nothing showing there of 24. And in September of 24, so you see an uptick, right? July, August, September, October, you see the uptick. That's when we were doing a lot of our operations where there was multiple charges. So I think that'll account for that statistical push up in that way. Again, possession for the purpose of trafficking, possession for various schedules, drugs, trafficking and scheduled substances are all just basically all different forms of trafficking and possession for the purpose. Different charge violations are just because due to the different schedules for the drugs, different types of drugs. But that's essentially the format that, if the board's happy with that, that's the format. Like going forward, we'll try and refine this format for stats reporting. If you are agreeable to that. Or if not, I'm open to whatever I can manipulate to make it different.
CEO,
Yeah,
Mr. Harris.
thanks, Mr. Chair. So thank you for that, Andrew. That specifically, I had asked you to take a crack at stats and try to make them contextual so we can understand trends, and appreciate the effort. And I think that's more helpful than, provides more information at least than the quarterly reports that just show pure numbers. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome to say, my intention is for that, a report similar to this to essentially replace the previous stats in the quarter report, if that's acceptable, yeah.
Yep, is there questions from council? Nope.
What was the name you
Mr.
gave to
Pudley?
Page 1.
I'm sorry, the first page?
Yeah.
So that's just overall.
Overall,
So
okay.
that captures all the occurrences overall that generated an occurrence number or a file number.
Okay,
Yeah. And then the breakdown, persons, property, and
yeah,
goods. Yeah.
good, thanks.
Councilor Lockhart.
I want to thank both of you for coming today, and back kind of like perception when I came here today and saw those cars, and that's the perception that my constituents have, that they see in these cars, and then they're see all the problems that happen at night. And I think that's a huge issue that is a communications issue more than anything else, and say maybe we can work through that with these public meetings. So, and I'm very happy to, I think we had a very positive meeting today, so I want to thank you for both for coming.
No, thank you. And whatever clarity we can clarify in those meetings with regards to mandates and who reports to whom and what the car numbers mean, I'm quite happy to discuss that with whomever wishes.
Councilor Redmond.
Yesterday, there was an activity going on in Colchester County, and I got a couple phone calls plus seeing it on Facebook. I wonder if you could explain the procedure behind sending out an alert. I understand it, but these individuals didn't. And they thought because there was somebody on the loose in, up by Glenholm, Londonderry,
Right?
that they should have been getting the alerts.
Yeah, well, there's a very strict criteria for that.
And that's what I'd like you to.
Yeah, so if there's an immediate threat for life or property that's essentially uncontrolled or a dynamic situation that we don't have contained or controlled, and there's a concern for safety in a community or an area, an alert will be issued for that area. And usually what occurs, the alerts can be done two different ways. They can be done by county, or we can do the whole province. You can do it by county, or you can do it by radius. When I was working as a risk manager there, and I worked in the risk manager from 2019 to 2023, so you know what period I was there as a risk manager, and as the alerts came out and were adopted. What we generally do is county, and we'll do usually the county with the neighboring counties if it's because of course the situation is dynamic, it can spill over, right? Pictou, Colchester, Cumberland, whatever. If there's no immediate threat to safety that's uncontained or something that we don't have control of or have knowledge of, no alert will be issued. And that's for a number of reasons, and it's a very strict kind of set of criteria where they don't want to be issuing them needlessly. They cause a lot of anxiety, and it's involved in that. Yesterday you would have the critical incident commander, who's a senior ranking NCO rank like myself. You would have the risk manager, who's another staff sergeant. You have a duty officer who's either an inspector or a superintendent. So there's a lot of senior people making that decision and considering those things all the time. And as the situations are dynamic, and if they start and something escalates, an alert can be issued at any point during an event if something changes. Also, a situation may start out as a very significant event and it's not how it was reported, or it's under control by the time we've intervened and no alerts necessary.
Oh, Mr. Pugsley.
Yeah, going along with your question, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was an alert, I believe it was from down around Pictou County, but it seemed as though we were hearing it over the phone or whatever, I'm going to say 10 times within a 12-hour period. It just seemed to be a bit much.
I don't disagree.
Okay. Just wondering if there's any control or...
I have no control over that.
Oh.
That's all done through the dispatch center by whoever the duty NCO is and the duty officer.
Yeah.
So like I said, when I was there, normally we would say if the incident was in Pictou, so Pictou, Colchester guys were in Antigonish County will probably get it, being the peripheral ones. What happens is you have your initial alert, you have an update alert if the situation changes, because you have to keep people, once you've notified them, you have to keep them updated, and then they cancel them, right? So we get the same thing here, and I'm sure we've all heard, or I'm assuming we've heard, we get alerts, New Brunswick, and here, and you're getting duplicate alerts because the alerts are issued at different times by different comm centers, and that's just because of the spillover from the New
Okay.
Brunswick cell towers versus Nova Scotia. So it's an imperfect science with regards to the counties because they're based on cell towers. So if I said I want to send it to only to Colchester and Pictou County, Cumberland may get it anyway, just because of the way the cell coverage works, right? So it's, when I say county, it's, obviously it's not a hard and fast, it doesn't stop, you know, at a civic address, right? But no, I don't disagree that that was a lot of notifications.
A good explanation, thank you.
Yeah, and that might be something you could bring forward through EMO, about, if it's something that people in your community are concerned about, excessive alerts or a number of alerts, that could be something, could be, a concern could be followed up through EMO.
And I just want to thank you as well, or your group, for things over the winter, looking out over the trails to make sure that people were complying with how they should behave on the trails.
Right.
There was a very good display of people checking at rallies and on other occasions, which was appreciated by the Snowmobilers Association for sure.
Okay, great, thank you, nice to hear.
Okay.
Only other thing I'd like to add, just as an update, just so the people in the community know, and I'm sure most of you know now, so we are wearing new uniform shirts now. That was out in the media, so we switched to a blue duty shirt. The gray shirt's still gonna be acceptable for another year and a half or whatever, but basically everybody's wearing a blue shirt now. Our cars are changing starting this year. We'll be going to a black and white police vehicle, same as every other police force, so white doors, black nose, black tail. So look very much like most municipal forces. Markings on the side will change. Still have the crest, will be small, but the word police will be quite big. There's that. And all our members are being issued new firearms over the next 12 to 24 months. New sidearm pistols. That has any effect on anybody here, but just as an update for the modernization side of it.
Councillor Hotelling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the alerts, when it's sent out, is it sent out to all cell phones in the county? Like if somebody's traveling through?
They get it.
They get it, okay.
Yep.
And in the report, is it possible under the person's crime to have a line for domestic violence separate than assault?
No,
No, it's not.
it's not. I have no control over those.
Okay.
So I can get it down to person's crime, and I can pick certain crimes, but because domestic violence involves often multiple, right? With one domestic situation, we can have threats, assault with a weapon,
Right.
like half a dozen or 8, so there's no delineator just to pull that out of, that I'm aware of. Now, I'll check, but in my initial mastery of this, I haven't been able to find it. I've got down to person's crimes, and that's about as far as I could go.
Okay, thank you.
But I will check, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, there was quite a few of them in the report, so it's.
There is, and the problem is too, like, so on our, you know, computers are as good as the people that enter the data, right? So we have, you can have an assault that's a domestic, and you can have assault that's a non-domestic, right? So we'll have an occurrence type as domestic violence. It's an assault, the person's charged, whatever. But if we don't go on the back end of this and we add, there's a line, we score a file to basically identify statistically, if that domestic violence kind of delineator's not added on the back end, this won't pick it up as a domestic. It'll pick it up as an assault, but it won't necessarily pick it up as a domestic. So in the interest of being comprehensive, I know I'll get them all this way, but with the broader net, I don't have that kind of specifics that I can pull. But I will work on that. Okay, I'll give it a try. Yeah.
Just a couple comments for me, seeing no other comments out there, or hands up anyway. On the alerts, I know you seem to hear and see on the Bible Facebook a lot less complaints when there is alerts than when there isn't alerts. So other than the fact that it scares you to death when it goes off at first, I think they're a positive thing personally. And on your graphs, we talked quite a bit today about everything coinciding with thefts and drugs and whatnot, and your graphs kind of indicate that. When one's down, the other one's down a little bit too, so, we thank you for what you do, and, we hope all your units are working together, and we'll bring all them lines right down to the bottom so we can barely see them, so, if there's no other comments, I'll look for someone to adjourn the meeting. Counselor Fromm, meeting adjourned.